Look down at the diamond on someone's hand. You've been told three things about it: that it's rare, that it holds its value, an investment you wear, and that giving one is a tradition as old as love itself. All three are false, and we can prove it because the people who made them up wrote it down. The diamond is not rare. There are vaults built specifically to keep millions of them off the market, so you never find that out. It is not an investment. Try to sell yours back tomorrow, and you'll be offered a fraction of what you paid. And the tradition? The diamond engagement ring as you know it is younger than your grandparents. It was invented, deliberately, in a Philadelphia ad agency in the year 1938 to rescue a struggling cartel. This is Tariq ka Hisab, history, audited. Today we open the books on the most successful marketing campaign ever run. Four words that turned a common stone into a sacred obligation, and a single company that controlled both the supply and the desire. And we find that almost everything you feel about a diamond was sold to you on purpose. A diamond is just carbon, the same element as pencil lead and soot, crushed under heat and pressure. It is genuinely beautiful, and cutting it well is real craft. But geologically, gem diamonds are not the rarest thing in your jewelry box. Emeralds and rubies of fine quality are far scarcer. So the price was never really about scarcity in the ground. It was about scarcity in the market, and that had to be built. It almost didn't happen. In 1870, enormous diamond deposits were discovered in South Africa, near a town called Kimberley. So much rock that the world's diamond supply was about to explode. When a commodity floods, its price collapses. Diamonds were on the verge of becoming cheap, ordinary stones. The men who owned those mines understood this perfectly. If they all kept digging and selling freely, they'd ruin each other. The only way to keep diamonds valuable was to make sure not too many ever reached the public. So in 1888, one man consolidated them. Sophia Rhodes, backed by financiers, spent years buying out every rival digger in Kimberley until his company, De Beers Consolidated Mines, controlled them all. By 1889, a single firm sat on roughly 90% of the diamonds coming out of the earth, and for the next century, De Beers ran what may be the most effective monopoly in modern history. It didn't just mine diamonds, it became the world's gatekeeper, channeling almost all of them, even its rivals, through one London office, the Central Selling Organization, and releasing them to the market a careful trickle at a time. Behind that trickle sat a vault. De Beers held enormous stockpiles, at times billions of dollars of uncut diamonds, deliberately kept off the market. Find a vast new diamond field anywhere on Earth, and De Beers' move was the same: buy the output and lock it away, or threaten to flood the market from the stockpile until you fell in line. They even bought up the Soviet Union's diamonds, the supply of a rival superpower, rather than let it loose. The rarity of a diamond was not a fact of nature. It was a decision enforced from a vault in London. But controlling supply is only half a monopoly. You can keep diamonds scarce all you like. It means nothing if people don't desperately want them. And by the 1930s, they didn't. Diamond prices had sagged through the Great Depression, demand was weak, and in America, the market that mattered, buying a diamond was far from a universal ritual. The cartel had perfected scarcity and was sitting on a product the public could take or leave. So in 1938, De Beers did something that would change the emotional life of the whole century. It hired an advertising agency, N.W. Ayer of Philadelphia, and asked a question almost no company had asked so nakedly before. Not, how do we sell more of our product, but how do we make people need a product they currently don't? The agency's own internal goal was breathtaking in its honesty. They set out to create a psychological necessity, to make a diamond feel not like a luxury you might choose, but like a step in life you could not skip. And it worked beyond anyone's hopes. Ayer didn't advertise a brand. For decades, the ads never even named De Beers. They sold an idea, that a proposal isn't real without a diamond, and that the size of the stone is the measure of the love. They put diamonds on movie stars and fed the size of each gem to the press. They sent lecturers into high schools to talk to teenage girls about diamond rings. The numbers tell the rest. In 1940, only about 1 in 10 American brides received a diamond engagement ring, and onward by 1990, it was 8 in 10. De Beers' wholesale diamond sales in the United States went from $23 million in 1939 to over $2 billion by 1979. Sit with that. A custom that feels ancient, that feels like it must go back centuries, was, for most people, manufactured inside a single human lifetime by an ad agency on a retainer to move inventory. The diamond engagement ring is not a tradition the cartel discovered. It is a tradition the cartel wrote. Then came the masterstroke, the single most successful line in the history of advertising. In 1947, a copywriter at NW Air named Frances Garrity was working late, exhausted, struggling to sign off a campaign. Before bed, she scribbled 4 words on a scrap of paper. The next day, even she wasn't sure about them. They were, "A diamond is forever." The grammar is technically wrong. Diamonds are, surely, not "a diamond is." And that's exactly why it works. The singular gives it the weight of a proverb, like something carved on a wall, not a slogan written for a client. Advertising Age would later name it the #1 advertising slogan of the entire 20th century. And the woman who wrote the most famous line ever written about marriage and eternal devotion never married in her life. But here's the part that turns a beautiful slogan into a machine, and almost nobody notices it. Forever is doing 2 jobs. The first is romance. Your love is eternal, so is the stone. The second is pure economics, and it is ruthless. If a diamond is forever, you never sell it. It stays in the drawer, passed to a daughter, locked away, and crucially, it never comes back onto the market. Why does De Beers care? Because the one thing that could destroy a cartel built on scarcity is a flood of secondhand diamonds. If millions of people resold their rings, the market would drown in supply and the price would collapse. A diamond is forever quietly made the customer promise never to do that. It is a slogan that sells you a stone and, in the same breath, tells you to keep it off the seller's own market for life. And to set the price, they invented one more rule out of thin air, that a man should spend a month's salary on the ring, later, in the 1980s, pushed up to 2 months. There is no ancient etiquette behind that number. It was a marketing benchmark, designed so the amount you spend rises with your income. When De Beers took the campaign to Japan in the late 1960s, a country where diamond engagement rings barely existed, they set the figure at 3 months' salary, and within 2 decades, the majority of Japanese brides wore one too. The right amount to spend on love was set, to the month, by the company selling the stone. You run the simplest audit there is. You try to sell it back. And in 1982, a journalist named Edward J. Epstein did exactly that, and wrote the article that has haunted the diamond industry ever since, in The Atlantic, under a title that is itself the whole argument. Have you ever tried to sell a diamond? The answer, for almost everyone, is brutal. Walk into a jeweler with the ring you paid $5,000 for and ask what they'll give you. You will be offered a fraction, often a small fraction, of the price. The retail value engraved in your mind is a one-way number. It only works in the direction of you buying. There is barely any real resale market because the whole system depends on diamonds not coming back. The thing sold to you as a store of value, an heirloom, an investment you wear, turns out to be one of the worst resale propositions in the entire luxury world. You did not buy an asset. You bought a beautifully defended price. And that price was defended by something that, for most of the 20th century, was simply illegal. De Beers ran a textbook cartel, fixing supply, fixing prices, which is a crime under American antitrust law. The company was so exposed that for decades it could not legally operate or sell directly in the United States, the very market its ads had conquered. Its executives risked arrest if they set foot in the country on business, and onward it finally faced the music in 2004, when De Beers pleaded guilty in a U.S. court to conspiring to fix prices and paid a fine, and a few years later settled the civil claims of American diamond buyers for hundreds of millions of dollars, agreeing to stop monopolizing the supply of rough. Read that back. The substance is a common mineral. The romance was written by an ad agency, and the price was held up by a scheme so plainly anti-competitive that the company behind it was a convicted price fixer, banned for years from the country it had taught to propose with diamonds. Every layer of "a diamond is forever" audited turns out to be something the seller built, and in one case, something the seller went to court and admitted was a crime. Then, one by one, the locks gave way. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Russia began selling its diamonds outside the cartel. Australia's giant Argyle mine walked away from the single channel. Canada opened new mines De Beers didn't own. The vault couldn't swallow it all anymore. Around the year 2000, De Beers gave up the century-old game of hoarding the world's supply, sold down its stockpile, and watched its share of the market fall, from about 90% in the 1980s to roughly a third today. Russia's Alrosa, not De Beers, is now the single largest producer on Earth. The monopoly that built the myth no longer runs the market. But the real reckoning isn't the broken monopoly. It's a far simpler fact, and it detonates the whole story. We can now make diamonds. Lab-grown diamonds are not fakes, not cubic zirconia, not almost diamonds. They are physically, chemically, optically identical to mined ones, the same carbon lattice, indistinguishable without specialist equipment. And they cost a fraction. In 2018, lab-grown stones were about 2% of engagement rings. Within a few years, they were roughly half. Their price has fallen by something like 85% in a decade. A 1-carat lab-grown stone that cost about $3,000 in 2020 now sells for under $1,000. Which means the public is now running, by the million, the exact experiment the cartel spent a century preventing, discovering that the stone itself was never the value. The value was the story. And the company that wrote the story? It is being sold off, at a loss. Diamond prices have slumped. De Beers has been left sitting on around $2 billion of diamonds it can't sell, has cut jobs, and its owner, the mining giant Anglo American, has written its value down by billions and is openly trying to get rid of it. The business once worth a fortune as the keeper of forever is now a problem on a balance sheet, hunting for a buyer, while the government of Botswana, where the stones come out of the ground, circles to take control. The empire that taught the entire world that a diamond is forever has discovered that it is not. So let's settle the account. Is a diamond beautiful? Yes. Is it rare? No. It's kept scarce. Is it a sound investment? No. You can't sell it back for anywhere near what you paid. Is the engagement ring an ancient tradition? No. It's a marketing campaign from 1938 with a slogan from 1947. Was the price natural? No. It was held up by a cartel that was, in the end, a convicted price fixer. The diamond is the one real thing in this story. Everything you were taught to feel about it was inventory management. The con wasn't that diamonds are worthless. They're not. The con is subtler and far more impressive. It's that the most calculated purchase you'll ever make was dressed up as the most romantic, and we fell for it so completely that 4 words written by a tired copywriter in 1947 still set the terms of how people propose today. The cartel is breaking, the lab can copy the stone, and the price is finally telling the truth. A diamond, it turns out, is not forever. But for almost a century the story was, and that was always the more valuable thing they were selling. Tariq ka hisab, history audited. Hisab abhi baki hai, the account isn't settled yet.